Hey, what's up? This is Andy from Every Time I Die, and you're listening to Macho Grande.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download at www.audibletrial.com/Macho Grande. Over 100,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player.
What you told me back in 98 when I was young and I knew nothing. People come and go and only find you when you're shining. But the moment it'll hit the floor, then suddenly you're nothing high. But guess what? I'm standing here till the end today. And even though I'm so afraid of how tomorrow rides, I hold my fist up till the skies, until there's nothing live. Yeah, until there's nothing live. They open up now, fighting in the silence, keeping me from fighting. Nothing left to lose. Pain helps me remember I will not surrender. As time flies, I realize the world is only getting colder. As I'm getting older, now I see the lies. Pick a side and tell me why. Every time I try to share the truth, they look at me like I was never right. And they right, but as my days were getting colder, getting lost in music, fought the devil off my shoulder. Pick up every album cause the words would make me sober. But the reason they don't feel so real, we share the same emotion, man. So guess what? I'm standing here till the end today. And even though I'm so afraid of how tomorrow ends, I hold my face until the skies, until there's nothing left. Yeah, until there's nothing left. They open up now, fighting in the silence, keeping me from fighting. Facing the truth, nothing left to lose. Pain helps me remember I will not surrender. Never back down. Never back down. Tell me now what's a lie. If you were wrong, would you do it right? Would you do it twice? Would you do it like this? But you can't, this is real life. If you wanna go and get it, gotta do the climb. If you want, would you run away? Would you run away? Facing the truth to open these ways. They open up now, fighting in the silence, keeping me from fighting. Facing the truth, nothing left to lose. Pain helps me remember I will not surrender. Never back down. Never back down. Never back down. Never.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 200 of Macho Grande. I'm Pete.
And I'm Matt.
Are you woken up yet?
No. Welcome to a really happy and energetic episode 200.
200 episodes, mate.
Yeah, we've made it. How have we managed to get this
We'll
far?
have to really push the boat out when we get to 250. We should have some kind of party.
Really? We can celebrate by packing it all in.
Well, I've not even got a beer on the go because we're recording in the middle of the day this time. So,
middle of the day for you. I've only been up for an hour, so I'm feeling a bit worse for wear. But I was up late, so it's my own fault.
So sorry, we're a few weeks late. We're kind of back to normal now, and We've got some big bands to play today, and we're going to talk about the Black Peaks album. We're going to talk about the Coheed and Cambria album. We've done a bit of a new kind of bucket list, just because we like making lists, or I like making Matt make lists for 200. And yeah, just do a bit of catching up. And we've got a competition, and we've got some voicemail. So yeah, we should have a ton of stuff today. We kicked off the show with Sylar with a track called Open Wounds, which is very new metal. They got the name from Heroes. Do you remember that TV show?
I remember that TV show. I really shouldn't, but I unfortunately do.
Yeah, it certainly it went very crap very quickly, did that show.
Yeah, but that first season was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was good.
But yeah, so, okay. I didn't know if it was a typo when you...
Oh, right, yeah. No, apparently they did actually name it after the villain in Heroes. So they've been around for a little while, but this is their third album. It's called Seasons. I'd not heard of them before. It came out a couple of weeks ago via Hopeless Records, and it seems to be getting quite a lot of press. I'm not quite sure yet.
Okay.
But yeah, Seasons. If you guys like the sound of that and want to check out more.
Cool.
So, yeah, it's been a few weeks, but what have you been listening to?
Well, things have started to heat up. Obviously, we went through a bit of a lull over the summer with releases of albums, and now it's starting to ramp up. So, since last we recorded the new Coheed and Cambria album, Unheavenly Creatures. We'll be playing a bit about that later in the show, so I might mention it then. But yeah, I mean, I'm enjoying it thus far. I don't think it's as good as the last couple of albums. It's not grabbing me as instantly as certainly the last two. I thought were brilliant. Both those were my end of year lists. Whereas this one, just like, I don't know if it's a case of there's nothing hooking me in the length of each song, because each song's at least sort of 4.5 minutes, if not longer, or it's like too long an album that I can't notice the hooks. But I don't know, it's just not grabbing me in the same way Coheed have in the past. The last couple of albums were just so more immediate. So I've still got to crack on with that a bit more. Obviously the new Black Peaks album.
Yeah.
All That Divides. We'll be talking about that later in the show, so I'll save my information and feedback for that later on. The new Beartooth album, Disease.
Oh, right, yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just can't get into Beartooth.
I don't mind some of their singles, because I play... Actually, they get requested quite a lot, and certainly, is it The Lines... And especially In Between, they've become actually proper floor fillers at the club. Like
but they're off the first album.
Oh yeah, no, I know. So I don't mind some of the singles, but whenever I've tried with an album, I haven't been fussed at all. I've not heard this new one yet.
Okay, well, because again, I was kind of a bit hot and cold with the first album, and again, this had this, pre-release buzz.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'll give this one a chance, and maybe this will be the one that and I still don't really get it. Like, I don't know, it's still a bit too sickly, and like, I don't know, it feels a bit disingenuous. I don't know how to really describe it. It's just a bit like,
because it's also not. Did I read that it's not quite written as a band either? It's mostly just him. He's put everything together, yeah.
We interviewed them at Download a couple of years ago, and he talked about how he sort of puts everything together. But I don't know, I just can't seem to get into it. Like, it just seems so mediocre by comparison to like a lot of the bands that they're kind of contemporaries with, if that makes sense. It just seems like, I don't know, it just feels like there's far better bands that I listen to, and I don't get why the buzz is there.
Yeah. It's not getting requested, this new album.
Really?
Yeah, nothing so far.
Okay, that surprised me.
Considering they're one of the bands that, pretty much every week you're guaranteed to get people asking for.
And like I said, there was such a pre-release buzz for a new Beartooth album.
Yeah, and it had a big campaign as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other new thing I've listened to is the new EP from the returning Arusha Accord.
Oh, I didn't know they were. Right, cool. Okay.
Yeah, they because obviously Paul had left. Well, the band had kind of fizzled out, and Paul had joined Devil Sold His Soul. Yeah, because he had joined Devil Sold His Soul after they had their previous singer had left, but now they're recording an album with the two of them, so he's come back, but they've got two vocalists now.
Oh, right,
but
cool.
Anyway, yeah, the Arusha hadn't done anything since 2009, I think it was when they sort of like split. Oh yeah, because it was like a 7-year hiatus. So yeah, this is the new EP.
Yeah, I mean, certainly if anybody out there hasn't heard like Nightmares of the Ocean, that EP is really good. And then the album that was on Basic or
it just the
Wolf
split
at Your
EP.
Door, that's really good.
Yeah, Wolf at the Door.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this is just sort of like nasty kind of prog metal. So the sort of vibes of Sick in there, but without the sort of the sixth quirkiness, if that makes any sense. So a bit more like Dillinger,
Yeah.
and Converge. But worth checking out. 6-track EP, it's really good, and that's kind of what I've been listening to, because the rest are just sort of singles with the new Architect stuff that has been teased. Oh, and I can't remember if I talked about it last. I must have. The new Therapy album.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so what about yourself? What have you had on the listening?
Sumac, I've been really, really trying to get into that. I'm still not sure that I like it. It's still that first album felt so much more structured, and everything since has felt very live and jammed, which I know is what they do, but I'm not a big fan of that. So
Right.
yeah, I'm still not quite sure, and it's such a long, deep album to kind of get into as well. Anal Nathrak, which again, I'm not entirely convinced whether I like that or not. I think it's brilliant. Some really, really crazy stuff on there, which is pretty cool. Behemoth, which we're going to play in a minute. The Black Queen, which of course is Greg from Dillinger.
Yep.
I was a big fan of the first album. I really like this new album as well. I know it's sort of not in our sort of world, if you like, but it's very, very good. What else? Then I did go through the New Monuments album, which is fine. I still don't think they're quite hitting the highs that they have had previously, but it's worth a listen.
Okay.
And then, just some new singles and stuff. I went through just some of the new stuff for the club, really, like the new Papa Roach single, which is god-awful. And the new Disturbed. We did a Disturbed promo night on Saturday, and I can't remember which one, whether it was the guitarist or David, but one of them said that this is going to be their Black album, which I think we mentioned in the news a few shows ago. So I've heard 2 singles off it now, and it just sounds like the same old crap to me.
Right.
I certainly can't imagine that it's going to set the world on fire and be their Black album. But who knows? And I'll tell you what, I am surprised. Like, we announced this promo night, and there's been so much interest, like messages to the club asking about it. So people clearly do care, about Disturbed. And I want new club bangers to fill the floor. So fingers crossed. But certainly the 2 singles I've heard so far are horrible.
Right. Ugh.
And then some YouTube stuff, but I'll save that. We'll just include that with the news, really, because it's more newsy than listening pile.
Okay.
So I think that's it. And I'm going to, hopefully, fingers crossed, I'm going to get to see Hawthorne Heights, who play Sheffield tomorrow night. And then Festival on Saturday, I'm going to go and show my face at. So I'll hopefully catch some bands there. Hopefully, in particular, Black Peaks.
Yes, that would be amazing.
So Behemoth, their new album is out now, which is called I Loved You at Your Darkest. It's out via Nuclear Blast. They have got many, many albums, of which I haven't really paid that much attention to over the years. But when The Satanist came out, it just caught me by surprise, and I was just properly in the mood for some just good quality death metal, of which that album is stunning, and I absolutely loved it. This new album is very, very good too. I'm slightly back in the kind of... It's fine, but it's not really what I want to listen to. I think, honestly, The Satanist just caught me just at the right time, and obviously I grew up listening to a lot of death metal. So I did like that stuff when I was younger, but I haven't
Yeah.
it hasn't kind of stayed with me. Have you heard it yet or not?
No, I have not.
I mean, I think quite wisely, it sort of sidesteps from the Satanists. It's not quite trying to follow it, so it is quite a different album. And of course, I don't know how many albums there are out now, but like 10 or 11 albums, something like that. So they do kind of veer, into different places. So this sounds very, very strong. I'm just not quite sure that it's going to hit the same kind of peak for me as the Satanist. So yeah, I wanted to play a track off it. Let's go for Wolves of Siberia. Right, so that was the news. No, fucking hell.
No.
Right,
No. Keep it. That's staying in. That's staying in.
It's not.
We haven't had the news yet, but yes, no, we've done the news. So that was the news. Now we're going to get on to our album and review.
Cool. Just get through this.
Okay.
That was Behemoth. Did you say Behemoth or Behemoth?
I say Behemoth.
Do you? Okay, even though
Yeah.
I think...
Well, only in relation to that, because that's how I've heard other people sort of refer to them. I mean, normally I would say Behemoth.
I think they probably pronounce it that way. And I don't know, do the Americans say Behemoth? Or do they say Behemoth?
This is the thing, like, I only just from listening to, like, review shows, like other metal podcasts.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I've seen, like, what's it, the Headbanger TV?
Oh, I don't know that one.
YouTube. It's the team that did that metal documentary. Can you remember the one where it was sort of like the evolution of metal?
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah, they have their own YouTube channel where they do like weekly reviews and stuff. And I'm sure I've seen an album review where they've called... I mean, again, they're Canadian, so I don't know if that has something to do with it, but they called them Behemoth. And I didn't know if it was stylized for the band or if it's...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure.
But yeah, I would have called them Behemoth, but yeah.
Let's get into the news.
Okay.
And there's a couple of sad ones that we'll just do these first. Very suddenly, literally, I think this was yesterday, Ollie Herbert, who's the guitarist of All That Remains, has passed away. All that's been reported is that it was very unexpected and a result of some kind of accident, and they found his body apparently in the pond somewhere near the property of his home. So that's really, really sad news. Dan Wild Beasley of Cleft has sadly passed away as well. Now, Dan, he's the chap that had the communities of Arctangent and 2000 Trees, especially, rally. He was a big part of that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and he'd had, major health issues for a number of years, and they did this huge campaign to raise funds for his treatments and stuff. So, yeah, that's really sad. He genuinely seemed like this really awesome dude and really talented guy, so that's pretty sad. Right, so on to happier things. We're a bit late with this, but we'll just quickly mention, obviously, Machine Head, Rob's announced that Phil and Dave, they're leaving the band.
I can't believe we haven't spoken about this.
I mean, we won't speak for too long on this because obviously we're very late with this news. But how do you feel about that as quite a big Machine Head fan?
Well, I mean, when I say big, I mean it was a weird. Well, okay, right. So it was a bit of a combination of feelings because obviously it was a bit weird and sudden to begin with when he sort of did this video clip. Like a live Facebook video, and sort of like, like the Dave's leaving the band, and here's what's happening. But in fact, I don't even know if I've got a band anymore. And then just sort of singing their praises, saying all this. Then it was just like, but we're still doing the tour.
Yeah, so they're going to wrap up. There's no more UK dates though, or do you think they'll announce more yet before this?
I'm
happens?
not sure. Well, because I think they're going to, then it was being sort of sold, treated as like a farewell celebration of that era, and then obviously that then sort of led to they're splitting up, and then that
a lot of sites kind of wrongfully sort of put that as their headline, which is a bit unfair on Rob, really, because that isn't what he said in the video.
Saying, he was saying in the video, I don't know what's coming next. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, but it's scary and exciting. Which again, great, fine. But obviously, there was nothing in what he said that indicated either they were splitting up completely or that he was going to be continuing. So I mean, it was left vague as is, but there seemed to be a lot of sort of speculation that was the end. So that
he seemed to lay the blame on him as well, didn't he?
Pardon?
He seemed to lay the blame on him.
Yeah,
Rob
he
to himself.
Sort of said that he's been working people too hard, or that he's too hard to work with, and that after. Well, I mean, like what? Dave's been with the band for, 16
since
years, something
Burning
like
Red,
that.
wasn't it?
So 2001.
Or was he on the More Things Change? Who was the drummer on that?
Yeah. I'm sure it's like sort of nearly 20 years.
Yeah, long staple.
Yeah, and then...
I'm going to wiki it.
Wiki it. And then obviously, guitarist joined just before Ashes, Burning Ashes. Ashes of... you know what I mean. My brain is dead.
So what would you prefer? That Rob came back with a completely new band, new music, or are you just happy for two people to step in? Because I mean, I know what you're saying, that those two guys, they've been the staple of the band, for a very long time. However, Machine Head, it's kind of always felt like a bit of an open door, hasn't it? I mean, people have just come and gone the whole time.
I mean, the thing is, I think, like you say, I've always sort of seen Machine Head as a revolving door, but certainly since Ashes of Empires, or Through the Ashes of Empires, that it's been a pretty stable lineup until, obviously they got rid of Demel. Not Phil Demel.
Adam
Deuce, yeah. So that seemed to be the sort of fixed thing, but I was kind of more expecting and kind of hoping for what band would Rob form next.
I want Aru to come back. He was cool.
Yeah,
Dave was on the More Things Changed, by the way. He joined after Burn My Eyes.
Okay. So, I mean, I was kind of just sort of thinking, like, it'd be cool and exciting to see what, instead of sort of like or like throwing in similar to say like Killer Be Killed or Soulfly, throwing in covers of their previous albums, or an interesting super group formed from the former bands or something. I just kind of thought that would be kind of exciting and refreshing, because the last couple of Machine Head albums have been pretty dud.
Yeah, I mean, we hated the new one, didn't we?
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's just, I've seen people online, that seem to be genuinely gutted about these two. And as I say, I know it has been a stable lineup, but when you think back to some of the other personalities that have been in that, there were other big guys in that band. And they've just come and gone over the years anyway, so...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of, there's this very sort of Spinal Tap-ish in that sort of sense. But at the same time, like I said, I think that's why, if, say, they had done this after the blackening, I would have been, call it quits completely. But they've had a couple of, a declining, sort of diminished returns since then. And certainly the last album in particular was horrific.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. If he carries it on now, whether they can... I don't think anybody expected the blackening.
No.
Or even, the album before was such a step up after what happened. When you think of Supercharger. So exactly. Whether it can happen again...
Well, no, but this is why I thought it would be exciting to sort of work with new people, and instead of continuing a legacy... I think that would be the worst thing now for Machine Head, is just to become this legacy cover band. I would much rather see something new. I mean, more than anything, I'm not having Dave out playing live is kind of the bit that because he's a brilliant drummer.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I'm kind of gutted about, unless, he might be starting or joining a new band or something. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, but certainly that was the one thing that I took from it, purely because, it's been a diminishing returns being a Machine Head fan for me over the last couple of albums.
Yeah, well, I've proper gone. I mean, I'm at the point now where I'm not fussed even about seeing them. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah. Well, like I said, I would have just rather new band and treat people with a couple of covers here and there from a new thing, but treat it as a sort of you had an amazing run. 1991 Machine Head formed, so just under 30 years. It would be cool just to sort of start something fresh and sort of see what happens, because that could just be really creatively inspiring. And I say that knowing that the last couple of albums were not creatively inspiring. They were pretty mediocre to bad, but there we go.
Yeah. Two really incredible things are on YouTube right now, which everybody should go out and watch. And one of them is the Caleb Schofield Benefit Show.
Oh, I've watched that.
Now, this is available to stream on YouTube. Go find the Cave In channel, and then on there you'll find the entire show. Great audio, great quality to watch. Now, this, of course, features 27, who I don't know, Pelican, Old Man Gloom, and then, of course, this is the biggie, Isis the band basically got back together to do this show under the name Celestial, and then you've got Cave In headlining as well. It is wicked. So go and watch it. It's fucking incredible.
I shall be watching that later. And is the other thing...
The other thing is 9 Inch Nails.
Oh,
okay. So 9 Inch Nails, it says fan footage, but the quality's insane. It's really, really high def of their recent show. I think it was literally just this weekend at the Radio City Music Hall. So it's the full 9 Inch Nails concert. Now, this has got Perfect Drug and stuff being played live. It is an amazing set list. And of course, their light show's incredible. The whole thing's on YouTube. So yeah, you should definitely watch that. The other one actually is the Enter Shikari documentary, which I'm halfway through. Have you seen that?
Oh, okay. No,
yeah.
I didn't.
So again, free to watch. It's a documentary on them making the Spark. So if you like techie music documentaries, that I'm about 40 minutes into it, it's really good.
Okay, well, the thing I thought you were going to talk about is the new Architects mini documentary.
I've not seen that.
Came out yesterday.
No, I don't know anything about that yet.
So obviously the album is out start November, and it's called Holy Hell, and this mini documentary is called Holy Ghost.
Right.
And sort of takes place around the end of late 2017, just around the recording sessions of Doomsday.
Right.
And it sort of covers, behind the scenes interviews with each band member and, how they've been dealing with the loss of Tom and the band moving forward. And then sort of it progresses through to the sort of like the bereavement tour sort of thing that they did.
Has it got anything from the Ali Pali show?
Yes, and then obviously it goes into the behind the scenes of Ali Pali, a couple of performances from that show.
Oh, cool!
And then it goes into it's a really good watch, and it teared up several times during it. It's just really emotional, and again, very excited for this new album. And it was just a nice sort of like beautifully shot little 20-25 minute mini documentary just about the new lineup and what it's like working with obviously Josh now from Sylosis,
yeah,
having Christian full time in the band, and more than anything, a lot of the focus is on Dan dealing with obviously kind of taking over the responsibilities from his brother, and. It's interesting. There's a really interesting part where sort of Sam's talking about like it was weird. It felt like Tom was there. He was channeling Tom, and it was just really inspiring. And they were just the band talking about how inspiring it was to be around Dan, who was sort of dealing with this loss in such a creative way. So yeah, it's really good, and I'm so excited for this album after watching that.
Well, there's a few hours worth of entertainment on YouTube just straight there. Cool.
Yeah, I didn't realise that. The cave-in footage, especially, I didn't realise that had been put online.
That is so cool to be able to watch that. They live streamed it, and then it was just made available the next day. So yeah, definitely go watch that. And like I say, the Enter Shikari thing is they've been planning and making this thing for quite a while, so it's really cool.
So and again, where's that? That's just on YouTube as well.
That's on yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. What was the other things I put down? Bloodstock have just announced Scorpions as their Sunday headliner.
Okay.
Now, I'm a sucker for a bit of Scorpions, and I've obviously never seen them, so I am sort of half tempted by that.
Okay.
Yeah, a bit wind change, rocky like a hurricane.
Was that Sunday, did you say?
That's the Sunday, yeah.
Okay.
Kylisa vocalist / guitarist Laura Pleasance has launched a GoFundMe, so if you want to go and help, this is to help with her, it says her significant other who is he's currently fighting cancer, and they're looking to help with medical expenses.
Yeah.
And the other bit of shitty news was actually Pelican, who we just mentioned. The guitarist, he got his house burgled while he was in the studio, which is really shitty. So he's currently listing loads of his private record collection on Discogs.
I did see that, yeah.
So if you're a vinyl collector, there's probably some pretty cool bits in there, I would have thought. And if you want to help cover, he's trying to cover his insurance payout, I think.
Did you see a couple of days ago, Pitch Shifter released shared a previously unreleased song from the unreleased scrapped last album. It's a track called Apply Yourself.
Any good?
I haven't properly listened to it.
Right, okay. I need to hear that. I'm still seriously debating whether to try and get down to the London show that isn't sold out.
Oh, yeah, no,
Yeah.
just for the...
Seeing as I'm not doing Slayer, because I wanted to do the Slayer tour, but I'm not doing that. So I think, might do Pitch Shifter.
Okay, that's again just a crazy sort of like announcement, which came out on April Fool's.
It's with Earth 10 9
still
as well,
sort of like was kind of a nice kind of double bluff.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that might have to be done because I don't think I've done London this year, and you get to see Earth Tone as well. So
yeah, and I want to see the Blueprint.
Oh yeah.
Just because again, I never got a chance to see the Blueprint at the time, and I just to to hear some of those songs live would be funny. Just a nice novelty.
Right, just core 10, yeah?
Oh, God, yeah.
So, let's finish with core 10.
Yeah, the big news.
They've announced that they're going to explore their punk side on the new single Victim, which is going to come out soon.
Yep. Moving on.
Can we swap round the playlist? Let's do Coheed next.
Okay. Coheed.
Because we've been chatting for a little while, so we'll play a tune, because this will be a much, much shorter review, because I've only listened to the album once.
Okay.
Coheed and Cambria. So I'm going to be that twatty guy that says I only like their early stuff, but I genuinely love In Keeping Secrets, Silent Earth, and Second Stage, Turbine Blade. Like, those albums are great. I do have a lot of nostalgia for that era as well, so I do like that stuff. I still try and play it when I can at the club. And then I kind of went off them on Good Apollo, with the exception of a couple of singles. And then I know you've raved about several albums since then, and I genuinely haven't probably given it the attention it deserves.
Right.
So I went into this not really with any expectations. I wasn't planning really on even listening to it, so this is, kind of on you. And I fucking hated this. This, for me, was... I mean, granted, this is one listen, so I apologise to any Coheed fans. But on this one listen, God, it felt like a just slog to get through. And the whole thing, for me, is just so plinky and sickly and sort of ballady happy, and I just really the amount of times I pulled a face at the stereo. But I did make it to the end, including the horrific last song with that guitar solo and ballad. I just really didn't like it, mate. I'm really sorry.
Well, that's okay. I really like that last song, Lucky Stars.
The last song.
I mean, because I don't think it's as good as the last couple of albums. I think I agree that it feels too long, and there isn't enough of a hook for me, which is annoying because Coheed are normally full of them. I think, well, I mean, by comparison, the last album, The Colour Before the Sun, is snappy.
Well, one of them made your top 10, didn't it? Was that one? Yeah.
10 tracks, and like every single song on that is fantastic. I absolutely adore that album. And if you kind of want something that's more in the vein of In Keeping Secrets, Good Apollo, that's getting more
right
into that.
I mean, clearly it wasn't for me, but even critically, I do think it's a bit baggy, and I just don't think it's that great. I don't think even the writing for a band that are obviously known for being quite proggy, I don't think, like you say, it's catchy enough or clever enough. I think it's in a weird, kind of slightly lame, and then because the whole thing's so bubblegummy for me, I just really couldn't get on with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't go that direction with it for me, but it does. For me, it's kind of thematically, again, Coheed sort of going around with their sort of themes. It does feel slightly. I mean,
15 songs as well.
It's too self-indulgent, and it just needs editing. I think and even for someone who loves when Coheed do their sort of long, proggy jams and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's brilliant, the whole story thing. Not that I follow it, but for those that want to get into the graphic novels and the overarching story, that's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it's a weird comparison to the last album, which was so snappy and kind of intentionally sort of blurring the line between the writing about their sort of themes or their story.
What was the name of the last one? And I will make it a point to give that a listen this week.
The Colour Before the Sun.
Colour Before the Sun, okay.
And again, the majority of it is, like I said, it's blurring the line between the fantasy story and just writing about himself. Like there's a couple of tracks on there which, like one's about his son, one's about getting married, and they're really good.
Yeah, okay.
It's really immediate, and it's 10 snappy tracks.
I I did quite like some of the sort of synthy sounding stuff, and if it had been slightly more themed, I might have got into it a bit more in that direction. I thought some of those bits were quite good, and I did mark down True Ugly, All on Fire, and The Gutter, which is the one that we're going to play, as the kind of, they're sort of okay. But song, I mean, there's a track called Toys, which I just wanted to skip. I really found it so horrible.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, it's a weird middle point for what I think, well, no, it is kind of a lower rated Coheed album for me. Kind of, although the only sort of comparison I can sort of give it is the Year of the Black Rainbow from 2010, and like that album still had some really big singles on it that, you know, are completely sort of, you would be easily on any Coheed album. There's still a lot of tracks on that album that kind of were a band written in turmoil because, you know, the bassist had left, the drummer had left, and it was just two of them, and they brought in like a co-songwriter for some of the tracks because they didn't even know if they could be a band anymore because things were so in disarray. And then obviously the bassist came back only to leave like another tour or so later. And then the former drummer cleaned himself up, and he's been back for the last few albums, and they've really been solid for a while, so it just feels slightly disappointing to have a baggy album when the last couple of albums have been brilliant. So yeah, I'm disappointed, and I'm a big Coheed fan. So I mean, it's kind of a 6 out of 10 for me at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd feel a bit unfair rating it, 'cause it clearly isn't for me, and I've only been through it once, so to even sort of critically, it's a bit unfair.
Okay.
So, certainly on a personal level, it's not for me at all. I don't like it.
So yeah, so take listeners, work with that review.
Yeah, okay, but we're going to play a track anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked into it, but I would be interested to hear from any Coheed fans as to what they think about it, because it just hasn't been to the sort of standard that they have been at for the last few albums. So it just seems very kind of self-indulgent. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear what other people think. So
we're going to play The Gutter, which is quite a late on track, isn't it?
Yeah, track 11 in an album of 15 tracks. So yeah.
Over my dead body, these stars will let you know it's over. Now if I had my way, I would leave you here to waste your final days buried beneath the possibility of broken hearted. Oh, please rest assured, this was not my fault, and time is getting short. So I'll be here if you want me. Covered in a red soap water. Oh, my darling, can you hear my words so pure they burn you lying here? And so the story goes, when I leave, will you let me go? When the
All right, so that was Coheed and Cambria. Let's now talk about Black Peaks, and just to kick this off, we have had we've got a mail and a voicemail from Ross. So we're going to bookmark this little section. We're going to start off with his mail, and then we're going to do our little mini album in review on Black Peaks, play a track, and then we'll play you his voicemail because he got to see them recently as well. So he says, "Hi guys, I feel this might be a wee bit premature as I'm only 2 or 3 listens into the Black Peaks album, but I think this is a strong contender for Album of the Year. While I love the first album, there was always a slight disconnect for me. Perhaps some songs were too similar, or the pacing of the songs was too long in places. But I never got a true sense of the record being the masterpiece everyone said it was. Despite that, I did place it as my album of the year that year, which shows how much I really did like it. All that divides is everything the previous album was and more, and it takes the very specific sound the band have crafted and elevates it to a more honed and tight style. There is no fat on this album. It feels like every note has been scrutinised and only allowed to remain if it is exactly correct in that moment. They've cleverly led the album with the singles. I hate calling them that now, and that can sometimes mean that the remaining tracks are not so accessible or well crafted. Not so here, as the album rises like a crescendo with every track getting better and better and more epic. I think the final 3 tracks are probably my favourites, though I feel this will be one of those records where each track will be my favourite at some point. I also cannot overstate how good Will Gardner's voice is. I can't think of another current vocalist with anywhere close to his range. It is easily the most captivating thing about their music. I don't give these out lightly, but I think this is a 10 out of 10 for me. I'm going to see them this Sunday night at the legendary King Tut's in Glasgow, so expect a drunken voicemail of the review of the gig if I don't die in the mosh pit. Take care, guys. Ross from Glasgow. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you, Ross.
So when Statues came out in 2016, very rarely, both you and I gave it our number 1 album of the year spot as well.
Yeah, we gave it the equivalent of a podcast standing ovation.
So this was very eagerly anticipated, and we got to see them live recently. We've seen them live before. They're stunning live as well,
yeah.
And we've praised them for being able to not only, do an incredible album, but to pull it off live. So we haven't discussed this at all. So
yeah, I was just going to say, and following on, they premiered quite a few of these new tracks when we saw them at 2000 Trees as well. So there's quite a few on this that I remember hearing, but obviously didn't know what they were.
And I think they released 3 songs. I kind of tried to avoid hearing the singles, to be honest.
There were 2 songs out at the time, and they played 2 other new songs.
Right.
When we saw them, so it was 4 new songs in total at 2000 Trees. One of them being, it's just gone out of my mind. Aether.
Oh yeah, cool.
Was one of them. But yeah, when we saw them, Can't Sleep and Home were the 2 that were out.
Right, okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
So, yes.
I pretty much agree, and I've written down everything that Ross said. I think this is a wonderfully crafted album that start to finish is just stunning. And I completely agree that Will, his vocals were incredible on the first album, and we said, what an incredible range this guy's got. And somehow he's managed to top himself and also add new parts to his vocals. I love the little high stuff that he doesn't do it much, but when it does these little high notes, absolutely stunning, I think. So I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic.
Well, I hated it. No, I agree. The evolution of their sound, like they're just sort of, it still sounds like Black Peaks, which still doesn't sound like anyone else.
No, I mean, there's bits of, I think on here, you slightly more Mastodon-y than in some of the riffs than the first album, and bits of Tool, but they don't sound like those bands.
No, but and at the same time, they've got that sort of indie streak, sort of, which separates them from being so proggy. If you know what I mean, certainly sonically, there's a sort of certainly. In fact, it's a very indie British band vibe that they have in that sort of mix, that melting pot of their sound. I think it's more cohesive of an album as well compared to Statues, which again it's that sort of syndrome of. You wait your lifetime to write your first album, and then you start work on the proper album.
yeah.
And the second one, so like this, it is genuinely written as an album, and it feels that as well.
Well, we said when Statues came out, it'd be interesting to see where they go next, because there are so many different styles on the first album. One of them being slightly almost edging towards hardcore. You know, there was some really quite fast bits, and we wondered, you know, which route they're going to take. And like you say, I mean, it's their own style that they've managed to elevate. And once again, you kind of left with this album thinking you can still go anywhere on your third album.
I mean, I was just about to say exactly the same. In sort of having that open avenue to go in any multiple directions, they, instead of just sort of narrowing on any one particular sound after Statues, all they've done is expand it to even more, just showing that, again, they're really talented musicians, really talented songwriters. Just the way they mix and move, like songs go through movements.
Yeah. Oh, the dropout moment and like little build-ups and stuff. And there's so many things going on in the background as well.
Really creative, and the addition of the new bassist really has brought an interesting dynamic to the band. First thing that actually sort of jumped out at me was when Russian Circles swapped out bassists, and the bassist... Oh, yeah, so it was on Geneva. When that album came out, the new bassist had joined Brian Cook.
Oh, right.
Yes, because he was previously in Botch. So he brought in this very particular sort of like aggressive bass sound, which was noticeable on that first Russian Circles album, or with him in it. And I had the same sort of vibe on this. It's just like, oh, wow, there's an interesting bass dynamic being brought in here. And if you notice, like in the mix, the bass is really punchy compared to the first album. And it's just like, it's an additional layer which I hadn't noticed on the first album, because the first album you notice the drums, guitar, and the vocals, whereas this, it was all four parts. I was noticing it was just like,
yeah, they do all shine. I mean the bass, there's wonderful, but I can't remember which track it's on. Which it is, it is reminiscent of Tool, but it's so good, this little bass line, and the effect that's on it as well, the low tone, really cool.
So yeah. Again, it's just like they're one of the most exciting UK bands around at the moment, and it's great that they're getting the recognition and that people are sort of flocking to them, because this, in some respects, you would think could be a hard band to sell, but people are really getting it, and like the first album got great acclaim, and I think that this album deserves exactly the same.
I've got friends that aren't necessarily metalheads, that they don't, they certainly don't follow the scene or anything, that love Statues. So I think it does cross that line of it isn't too sort of clever and sort of wangy kind of stuff that people can't get into it, and obviously it's not so heavy that non-metalheads can get into it as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just treading a nice line.
Yeah, like I said, it's got that very British indie sort of vibe, but it's got the progressive, and it's got the spazzy moments, the spazzy sort of mathcore moments in places, and like you say, and again, they look completely different to the sort of band that you would think they would be as well, because they just look like five normal lads. And again, live, their performance live, they're just mesmerising.
Have you got a finished copy?
I haven't.
No, I've not bought it yet. I need to do that. I like the look of the front cover, but I don't know.
No, I need to pre-order that along with several other albums that have just come out.
I know, it's all racking up a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, I still haven't properly bought.
Did you get Thrice?
No, not yet.
Oh yeah, because didn't you do one of the pre-orders on that?
Yeah, and it hasn't arrived yet, and I'm going to put in an order, because the New Architects one is now signed if you get it exclusive through Amazon.
Cool.
So I'm going to get that along with Black Peaks through there. So yeah, I mean, like, we could go through track at a time, but I mean,
No, we'll keep it a little bit more mini today because
it's all so good.
Yeah, I mean, I've marked like 5 standouts, but like you said, the whole thing's good, and it ends so well. The last track, Fate 1 and 2, is just such a good closer. After that's like almost menacing brood of slow C's, it's just incredible. The only one I was a little bit unsure about, and I do love it now, that slightly belongs possibly maybe more on the first album that I don't think it's quite of the same standard, was track 3, Electric Fires, but I do really like it now.
Okay.
That one took a little while.
The only one that I wasn't into it that much when it came out as a single, and I'm still not feeling it completely, is track 6, Home.
Home, right, yeah.
Like, I like parts of it, but I don't know why. I just can't seem to sort of like. That one's just.
I like that one. It's so quirky. Like the way he says the word home.
Ha!
Yeah, it's so weird, the recording of that, but it's brilliant.
Yeah. But again, it's just a personal thing of like, I think for me that's my least favorite on an album that I think is amazing.
What track do you want to play? I mean, I'd mark down. I think my absolute standouts are track 2, The Midnight Sun. 4, which is Aether, and then I don't know, like track 5's amazing, and then the last track's amazing. So
I don't mind. You let you pick.
Maybe The Midnight Sun.
Okay.
Track 2. And what are you going to score it?
For me, I still want to listen to it more because it's just so. There's so much going on. So at the moment, I'm sat at a sort of 9.5, 9.
I'm going to give this 10 out of 10.
Yeah, I
just
again, because I've not fallen in love with Home,
right?
And I know it's probably just because I've only been on this now for just over a week and a bit, and I still feel like there's a lot more that I need to a lot more listens I need to give it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
we're gonna play track 2, The Midnight Sun. Here you go.
Innocence for my overconfidence. I'll show my cards again, though the tables change. I'm still innocent. Fight for me through these waters deep. I'm indifferent, can't be different. It's so just me. can you hear them calling? Softer than a bird to my ever mournful soul. Voices in the head, can you hear them calling? Echoes in the dark to my ever mournful soul. Voices on the wing, can you hear them warning? Softer than a bird to my ever mournful soul. It's so.
All right, gents. Ross from Glasgow here. Just thought I'd give you a wee phone and a little report on my trip to see Black Peaks at King Tut's last night. It was good. It was pretty good. I've been to better gigs. I feel like I'm being a little bit harsh and judging them unfairly. I don't know, being overly critical or something, but there was a couple of things I just felt like didn't quite land right. And I think if you ask most people, the gig was amazing, and I think the band probably thought the gig was amazing as well. And in all honesty, it was very, very good, particularly because it's supported by the fact they've just got this incredible album out. But I think after listening to the album, I expected it to be like stratospherically incredible, and it just wasn't quite there. I think I'm trying to sort of pin it down. I was thinking about it last night after the gig. I'm trying to pin it down. I think the issue is in the mix in the room, the bass, vocals, and drums really prominent, very powerful, and the guitar was kind of lost. And I felt like the band, and Will in particular, was doing a lot of work to try and get the crowd going. And this is the song, this is the bit where you jump around, and I want everybody to go nuts here and stuff. And I just felt like, well, if your music was heavy enough, people would be doing that anyway. And I found myself comparing the heaviness of it to other bands I'd seen at King Tut's, which have just like blown the room apart. Like Every Time I Die, I know they're a heavier band, but the sound that they were able to put out just seemed to like move you. You couldn't help but just get bounced around. And there was a few times on stage that the band were like really like going for it, rocking out, fist pumping, head banging, all that kind of stuff, and the crowd were just not quite with them. And yeah, there was a mosh pit and stuff. I walked in and said, I'm not going to go in the mosh pit tonight because I'm overweight and I feel like I'm going to die every time I go in a mosh pit. But I as soon as the music started, I was like, well, there wasn't really a mosh pit, so I was like, well, I guess I better create one. And you know, after the first couple of songs, people definitely joined in. And it was good. I mean, I can't knock the musicianship and the song quality, and Will's voice is like unbelievable. Sorry, I'm walking up a hill. Yeah, his voice is incredible, and it's not diminished at all from the recorded work as well, which is something very special. But I don't know, I just walked away feeling like I wanted more. They didn't play a couple of songs. They didn't play Set in Stone, which is probably my favourite song of theirs. But it was a good mix of new and old. All the songs sounded great, but they just sounded a little bit insipid, I guess. And I wouldn't expect that from King Tut. And I just thought that they were going to be way, way louder, way more powerful. In contrast, actually, they were supported by Bosk, who I've only really listened to because they were supporting them. And they were, like, I mean, impossible to mosh to. Everybody was just standing still because it's just like this wall of doomy noise. But they were loud, super, super heavy. And yeah, and I just felt like Black Peaks just didn't quite hit the same height. But, you know, I would go and see them again, absolutely. And it was great fun. I feel like I'm being overly critical, but I just think it's because I love the album so much. I thought that the live show was going to be right up there, and it just wasn't quite as good. So, anyway, I'm going to catch my breath walking up a hill. This is why I don't go in mosh pits. Right, take it easy, guys, and we'll speak to you soon. Bye.
All right, so thanks for the voicemail, Ross. If you guys want to leave a voicemail, it is 05603 689 842, and we can play it on the show, as you just heard from there.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Maybe it's possible you caught them on a bit of an off night, because they've definitely been like blasting and powerful when I've seen them, but I could understand like on an off night it's possible that they might not hit those moments,
especially if it is sound, because it doesn't take much for the sound to drastically change the show. You know, depending on where you are, you know, it can really kind of make or break a show. So
totally, and I'm glad you like Bosk. Yeah, they're great.
If you've not got their back catalogue, I mean, I can't remember how many records they got. There's like 1 and 2, and then there's the one a couple of years ago, wasn't there? They're all good. Yeah,
there's 3 now. So there's 1, 2, and then 3 was a DVD movie or live album-y thing, and
because they went away for a few years, didn't they? And then came back with that new
sort of disbanded for a while, and then came back with I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, we really liked it. It's on my shelf here somewhere. But yeah, it's very, very good. Cool. Okay.
Yeah, Audio Noir.
Ah, well done.
Yeah.
So, because it's episode 200, we've decided to make lists.
Yay!
Now, rather confusingly, I had to check with you several times, like the wording of this list, and there's a very good chance that we've still differed. And I think I worry about these things far more anyway, when it comes to making lists.
Yeah.
The idea behind this, right, just see if I've got this right, okay. The idea behind this is that it's a 10-album bucket list that critically you think these albums are really good, but personally you have to love them as well. So it's not just a critical list, because when we chatted about this, we were like, well, if you went through like the history of rock and metal and there was, you know, people voted on the critically the best albums, you're going to see stuff like the Black Album and probably Appetite for Destruction. But those albums, unless you've put them in, they ain't going to appear in Matt and I's lists.
You
haven't put the Black Album in there. I know you haven't. Right, so
I thought these were like personal, sort of like these are our sort of like essential, couldn't live without.
Yeah. So that's the crux of it, is that they personally mean a lot to each other. So, you know, they're not necessarily critically the best album from that band's career. It's your favourite pick that you would recommend to somebody. I hope that doesn't sound too needlessly complicated.
It sounds incredibly more complicated than I thought, because you've even confused me. But,
in a nutshell, 10 great albums that you consider critically good, but that you personally couldn't live without.
Yes. Good. Okay. I think we're on the same page.
Do you see why I was stressing about it now?
Well, I just for a second, I found it rather easy, but then at the same time, like, the way you described it made it sound like I'd actually done the wrong thing, and then I was starting to panic, thinking, oh no, I'm going to have to do something on the fly here.
It only takes the tiniest... Obviously, when you're trying to do greatest albums and stuff, it only takes the tiniest thing, and the list changes dramatically.
Yeah. Well, I thought this was certainly easier than the Tarantino list.
Oh, God, yeah. Anyway, so this is just a bit of fun. Basically, we're going to bang out 10 albums, and we're going to pick a track off each one to go on the brand new Spotify account, which I haven't set up yet.
Yeah, and... okay, it's going on the thing that we haven't done yet.
It may appear on there, we'll see.
Yeah, but more than anything, it's just a case of, like, if you want to know what sort of makes us tick, these are our sort of, like, top choices of things that sort of not necessarily defined us, but like are just the ones that are like
core
hold
favorites.
special places for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've not necessarily done this in any particular order. Have you? Or
not well, sort of.
Thing is, I can't swap between these 10 albums anyway. They're so good. But okay.
Okay.
Now, mine spans from 1999 to the newest one is 2012.
Mine spans from 1994. The most recent is 2012.
Ah, okay. So we're kind of similar there.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've not discussed this at all, so I have no idea what's in your list.
Yeah, and I've got like a bubbling ovary of additionals.
Yeah, I've made a note of the ones that I wanted to be in there that I've had to cut out, and then I've also made a list of holy shit, why on earth aren't these in there?
Yeah,
because this was far too hard.
I'm denying about certain ones now. Okay, where are we starting?
That's all right. Just do one each, backwards and forwards, because we're not going to play any tracks or anything, so we just fire them out. All right.
Okay.
My number 10 is Enter Shikari, A Flood of Colour from 2012.
Very good.
And I mean, it might not necessarily be their best album, but that as a collection of songs means a whole pile to me, and I love the whole thing, and I think there's just so many bangers on there. And again, if you were recommending an album to somebody, I think that sums up a lot of their style in one album.
Yeah.
So I love that album.
I think that's perfectly understandable. My is now, you know, I feel very different about this band now, but Parkway Drive, Killing with a Smile.
I thought you were going to say Lost Prophets then.
No. 2006.
Cool.
This album was unbelievably important to me,
nice.
And just absolutely adore this album, regardless of how I feel about the band now, because they're a far-flung shadow compared to the band that play on this album.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, like, it also just sort of defies an actual sort of period in my life as well, of just sort of like, you know, following them around on that tour, their first UK tour, and just the road trips with mates, and, you know, like, yeah, the whole thing just sort of like encapsulates something special. So yeah, Killing with a Smile, an incredible album. Nice.
My number 9 is System of a Down's debut album, System of a Down.
Great album.
Which, I mean, for I still love this collection of songs. I think it's an absolute banger, start to finish. But also, this was one of those rare occasions where genuinely it sounded like nobody else at the time. It felt so new, and there was such a almost underground buzz, first of all, because obviously we know them now as this, you know, massive band. But at the time, this was one of those albums where it was like the dude in the record store recommended it. I'd not even heard of them from a magazine. Do you know what I mean? So it was one of those, I think it was a trip to Nottingham, and obviously this never happens anymore because there's barely any record stores anymore. But there was a little record store that was a ticket place primarily and sold T-shirts. But they had like a fairly okay collection of CDs in there as well. Kind of near the Robin Hood place. Do you know where I mean? I can't remember what it's called. No, okay. So little record store, and the guy behind the counter, I'd gone in there for something else, and he was like, "Have you heard System of a Down?" And I hadn't, and that was it. I just bought it on a whim because this dude recommended it, and God, yeah, so good.
So not Sherwood Forest.
Sherwood Forest, the place?
Yeah, the Robin Hood place.
Yeah, there was the like the Jorvik Viking Centre. In York.
That's great.
It is great. Well, there was something similar to that. It's closed down now, but there was something similar to that in Nottingham on that kind of bit of dual carriageway as you go through Nottingham on the left-hand side. And it was one of those, you sit in this little kind of train cart that takes you around a track where you sort of relive Robin Hood and his adventures.
Like the days of yore, the trains. Trains.
But the Jorvik Viking Centre, that had the genuine smells from the era, as I remember it.
Genuine smells of the era? Oh, brilliant. Okay.
Alright, you're number 9.
Ruben, in Nothing We Trust from 2007. It's possibly, well, I'm actually not sure. It's probably not like the choice most Ruben fans would choose. Like, they'd either go with the debut album or the second album, Too Fast, Too Dangerous. Which, again, like I say, it's that sort of thing of like the first album has some really big singles, and obviously that was the one that sort of broke them through, and fans have a lot of love for that album. I love that album as well. Second album is like an absolute banger. Every track on it's amazing as well. But I have just a real personal love for Nothing We Trust, which is just, it's a real dark, bleak turn compared to the first two albums. And yeah, like I say, it's a darker sort of time. I mean, obviously this one, it was so good. The dog loved it. Yeah. It was a darker turn before they split up, and I think it's just got some amazing sort of weird experiments going on in it, and like real sort of odd, discordant writing styles going on. And like I say, it's really bleak, and there's something about it I just absolutely adore. Cool.
Okay. Next up for me, I'm going to go Gojira, and I've chosen The Way of All Flesh.
Cool.
Which I just love, start to finish. I think that probably is my favourite album of theirs as well. But yeah, I think that is just a perfect modern metal record.
Cool. My number 8 is Thrice, Artist in the Ambulance.
That's in my holy shit, why can't I get this into this top 10 list?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out which...
Oh, actually, no, sorry, I put Vahezu. I put that down.
Well, this is the thing. I was deciding which... Because Vahezu it covers a different sort of period of my life, but obviously sort of moving to Lincoln, meeting you, and like... I love that album for different reasons, but again, it's... The Artist just was the soundtrack to certainly my last sort of year of uni in London.
Right.
And it just sort of like soundtracks so many memories, because like that album came out over the summer before my third year. So it was just, back when I still had to walk around with a CD Walkman, nice. and a little wallet for the day of music to take with you. That never left the CD wallet. Like, that was a guaranteed staple that I took with me daily into uni.
Yeah.
So so for that reason, it's just like, fantastic album from 2003.
Cool. Actually, I was wrong. It's not 1999. My oldest one is actually 1994. I'd have been 14 when this came out, and this is Pantera's Far Beyond Driven.
Cool.
Now I wanted, we'll talk about this in a minute. I wanted Metallica and Maiden, because in terms of personal albums growing up, like Metallica and Maiden, when I was much, much younger, they were the bands. But Pantera were probably the first, kind of newer metal band doing new things. And this album just blew me away at the time. And I still absolutely love it, start to finish.
Cool.
So that had to go in.
Yeah, well, I think that's fair and justified, definitely. Where am I at? Okay, 7. Again, I feel very differently about this band now, but Biffy Clyro Infinity Land from 2005. Again, it's not necessarily the album that most people would choose either. It was the third album in a trilogy of like masterpieces for me. The debut album's amazing. The second album is even better. But the third album again just holds that sort of high watermark for me. Everything after this has been a slow progression to essentially the middle of the road.
Right.
Speeding up with every album that they release since Puzzle, basically. But yeah, Infinity Land, again, it's kind of the weirdest and the bleakest. There's probably a theme going on here. It's kind of the bleakest.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not the top 10 of most miserable, bleak, depressing albums.
No,
that would be very different.
For Biffy, it is. It's the weird. It's the most experimental.
I'm looking forward to it. I need to, because I've never heard that start to finish. I will have heard whatever. What were the big singles off that?
Big singles off this album would have been. I'm trying to think. The first couple of songs are probably the bigger. Let me just find it. Sorry, Infinity Land. So yeah, the first single was Glitter and Trauma, which is the first song on it. Right. My Recovery Injection was another big single.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And I think the only other song
Can you send me that album? I've just realised I've not got it.
Infinity Land?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Cool.
I can't remember if it was a single or not, but I think it was There's No Such Thing as a Jaggy Snake, which again is is a quintessential, or certainly what I would have said was a quintessential example of what Biffy Clyro were like prior to Puzzle and everything that has come since. Like, it is all over the place. It's mental. The lyrics are insane. The guitar is all over the place. It's got bits of mathcore in it, and it's got quirky instruments. And it's not the sort of thing that all the uniqueness is in that one song in itself that they have stripped out on every album since, basically. But it's just got some of the best sort of like examples of like the three doing harmonies and things like that, with like the Atrocity again, with all three of them sort of doing these interesting sort of harmonies, or sort of not barbershop, but you know what I mean. Like they're all harmonizing differently, and again, it's just got some of the really sort of weird songs on it. The Kids from Kibble and The Fist of Light. There's No Such Man as a Crasp is really weird, but I love it. And I absolutely love the last track, Pause It and Turn It Up. Again, it's the most sort of like odd, the most Biffy Clyro album before they became anything else.
I will definitely give that a go.
So yeah.
My next one is Tool, and I debated long and hard as to which album is even my favourite, but I've gone with, now supposedly according to the band you pronounce it as Wanma, but most of the world says Anima. From this album, the band, to me, became Tool. The previous album has nods. I wouldn't say that's a perfect album, but from this point forward, they just became one of my favourite bands in the world. And I love Lateralis and 10,000 Days equally, I would say, and maybe tracks more so than this album. But when I looked through like all the track listings for those three albums, I think this is the most consistently good to the end. So that's why I've gone for this one.
Yeah, this is one I wanted to have. I couldn't find a way of putting it in, although I could still sort of push something out, because I'm still sort of like,
we haven't clashed yet.
Coming up well, there's two coming up, which I haven't sort of like decided upon.
Okay, I'm sure we're going to clash on at least 2, maybe 3 albums yet.
Yes, there's certainly one we're going to.
It's because we added the personal. That's what changes everything. Because obviously that, like you say, if you're at college or at your school or uni or something, that changes everything. Because of that one album that you listen to on the bus every day on the way to school or something.
Yeah, exactly. And like Tool, Anima is an absolute masterpiece. Like, it's one of my favorite Tool albums. But again, I don't know. Because it's probably the one I would have picked if I could have fitted it into my list. As much as I love Lateralus and 10,000 Days, this just is the one that was like, okay, right, I get this band now. Like, this was like, okay, right, yep, they've done something special on this one.
Yeah, and it's so just it. I mean, they're just their own thing. I mean, it completely stands the test of time.
Yeah, well, especially when you compare it to what came before this, you know, they had glimpses of this band, and then it was this one where it was just like every song was like, oh, okay, yep, this is brilliant album. You know, be it Undertow didn't have. Not every track on Undertow was amazing.
No, well, there's quite a bit of that album that I'm just not fussed about.
Exactly.
I just don't think they found their feet, that's all.
Yeah, and
it was on its way.
It was this one where it was just like, right, get it now. Right, next one for me. Again, I don't know if it counts, because it's not a rock album.
Yeah, go on.
DJ Shadow introducing.
I think that would be a different... Because that is purely going into personal.
Yes.
So I thought this was in the rock metal world.
Okay, good. Then I will swap it out for...
Because I haven't put Godspeed, and if it was absolute personal favourites, Godspeed would have to be in there.
Exactly. I was kind of like, does that count?
So I have kept it as just the rock and metal world, as though you were going to say to somebody who's never heard anything, here are the 10 albums that critically and personally I love.
Okay, right, well then I will swap it out for either... Okay, I'll either swipe...
Remember, this is going to live on forever, by the way. Not only as the podcast, but also as the Spotify playlist.
I'll swap it out for Seguros Untitled.
Ooh.
From 2002.
Oh, I forgot about that.
At least that's what I call it, Untitled.
Yeah. People.
Yeah,
it's the parenthesis thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
From
2002, again, I absolutely adored not so much the first album, Yord.
Yeah,
I like a couple of songs on it. Agenda's Version.
Yeah, that's right. That was a better attempt than mine. Well done.
Sorry.
No, you're completely right. This is one of the most beautiful albums ever recorded.
Yeah, and Agenda's Version really sort of like got me. I remember accidentally stumbling across it just on MTV2 late one night, and like absolutely was like, I'm gonna find out who this band is. And then whenever this album came out, they did the big fancy sort of like back when bands could do like fancy packaging and releases and promotion for an album, and for an album that had no names.
Yeah.
It was even more interesting, but yeah, this one is the one that blew me away completely. As much as I love Agenda's Version, this one, and again, sort of like showing the crossover for this album as well critically. It was like the amount of times like the BBC would use songs from this, or films would use songs from this album, but at the time it was like, no one kind of really knew who Seguros were, but people knew who Seguros were after this album.
Very good. All right, I reckon we're going to clash here. My next one is At the Drive-In, Relationship of Command.
Couldn't get it in.
Oh, wow, okay.
It's on my just outside of.
This is just... I know, like, they're a weird one because you've talked about other releases. And I've never really dipped into a lot of their other stuff, like those EPs and is it In Casino Out and stuff.
Yeah.
But this one album was just this, flash in the pan moment of just brilliance, and I've never stopped listening to it. This is still a go-to album all the time for me. I love it, absolutely love it. So
no,
yeah.
I mean, I'm the same. It's just on my outside of, sat beside Norma Jean as well.
Right.
Which again just sort of couldn't get in.
Okay.
Although I don't know, I'm still not so sure about one of them. I don't know if it deserves to be in this list for me. I mean, it's great, but I don't know. Okay, well, my next one I think we'll clash on is White Pony by Deftones.
That's in my list.
Yeah. What could be said? It is the high watermark from that sort of 5-year period of nu metal from sort of like 96 through to sort of 2001. This came out in 98, and it's kind of that high watermark for me.
It was just stunning. And it was the maturity of it at the time as well, and the tonal shift from obviously Around the Fur. It was just something else. And I actually put it on the other night and just listened to it start to finish, and it just holds up so well.
Yeah, and especially when you read about like they were barely talking to each other and they were just partying all the time and off their faces. That it's so layered and textured and ahead of the curve. For the fact that it still sounds so fresh for 20-year-old album, 1998. I bought it at our price. Our price was still a thing. Can you remember our price?
Yeah, our price and Andy's Records we used to go to.
Yeah, well, I won't cover. Did you buy? Because originally it came out with different.
I didn't have the fancy colour. Yeah, because there's different colours, wasn't there? I just had the grey, like the silver grey. Which wasn't special.
I went up to get the all black one.
Yeah, I actually only found out about that quite recently. I didn't know those at the time.
Yeah, because they released it in sort of like, obviously like the insert, the booklet was grey and the disc was still the same, but like it came in an actual sort of opaque plastic case, so you could get it in like red, black, white, and another colour. But they were each limited to like, it was something stupid like 5,000 each colour.
Yeah, I never saw those when I went out to buy that at all.
Have to have the black one. And ran up to our price to buy it.
Cool. Well, that's. I'll just consider that mine now then. So you go again.
Curb Dog on the Turn.
I wondered if you put Curb Dog in. Right, yeah.
Just again, another 1998 as well, this album.
Right.
Just, again, it's one of those albums which still start to finish, every track's brilliant. Still love it as much as the day it came out. It's still great to hear those songs live. The fact that they're still sort of going on this legacy as well is kind of brilliant, and again a testament to just like how strong that album was, because it was kind of ahead of what other UK bands were doing. Well, they were from Ireland, but what other sort of British Isles bands were sort of doing at the time, because it just had that kind of that DC kind of vibe of kind of helmet with a, that kind of American crossover with a kind of Metallica vocal style a little bit, but with a bit of Nirvana, a bit of Helmet, a bit of, not Queens of Stone Age, Caius.
Oh, yeah.
It's got those sorts of riffage.
The little bit of the desert kind of.
Yeah, but at the
tiny
same time,
bit.
Yeah, it's just that sort of 90s. It's a specifically 90s kind of thing, which again it just sort of like summed up a moment. And yeah, this was one of those albums that has always stuck with me. And again, because it was for the love of no one else ever really knowing them, and the friendships that I've made from people who have also heard this band. John. Like when I first met John, we were both like, he loved Curb Dog and I loved Curb Dog. And that was another sort of like, no way, I can't believe you heard of Curb Dog. That's insane. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
My next one now, you say they didn't make the list for you. I've put Norma Jean and I've gone with Redeemer. There aren't many bands that are just so consistently good across their back catalogue, and to go from where they began, this album was quite a departure from the previous one. I could argue with myself as to which one is my favourite, but in terms of just bangers and for like sing-alongs in the car, this is right there. And again, much like at the drive-in, I can just put this on any time and be happy with the whole thing.
Yeah, I might change out my next one and replace it with.
Would you have gone for the same album? Or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if somebody said, critically, which is the best Norma Jean, I would maybe go Meridional.
Yeah, Meridional, or even if you're going to go critically.
Oh, mind you, I love the one.
The last album.
Sorry, I said this was a departure. I forgot about the previous album. But it is still a departure. But yeah, the one before is stunning as well.
Yeah, The Wrongdoers.
No, I was thinking of the one before Redeemer. I've got the vinyl. I can't even see the name of it. Oh God, the Aftermath.
Yes, critically, certainly that will one lost
So
reward.
so heavy, that album.
Yeah, but again, I think I might. Basically, my next one would have been Will Haven.
Oh
Carpe
shit!
Diem.
I forgot about Will Haven. Carpe Diem,
which
bloody hell.
again is kind of like why I was kind of like, I do absolutely adore that album, but I kind of want to get Norma Jean in there because again, it was one of the bands.
I mean, the thing is, if you do Will Haven instead, that means we get to have it on the playlist. Because
Okay.
I'm right with you that Carpe Diem should be fucking in this list.
Okay, we'll do that then. I mean, I acknowledge that Redeemer should definitely be in here. For more than anything, it was one of the bands that we bonded over.
Yeah.
Like when I first met you, it was like, oh no, Norma Jean, Redeemer.
You know, and I'd play, of course, what was the big single off the album before? Oh God, what the massive tune that? Which I'm not. I'll be honest, I'm not. Still with the previous singer, and I'm not that fussed about that album.
No, but just for that breakdown.
Yeah, well, it was the fact that you could play that at the club I DJ'd at, Ponana's, and just have a room full of people going insane, which would just never happen anymore.
Memphis will be laid to rest. Waste.
Yeah. When that kicked in, and the rapturous cheers for this ridiculously heavy track. I love my job now, you know, DJing at court, but that doesn't happen. Like, you don't see that happen, let alone for something like Norma Jean.
There was a specific period, certainly when I moved to Lincoln as well,
So
just
lucky to be part of
2005 to 2007, 8. That was just very specific.
All right, so you're going to stick Carpe Diem, yeah?
Okay, yeah. So Carpe Diem, then is my sort of like alternative because it's Norma Jean's in there anyway. I mean, what can really be said? This is just a mental album of heaviness and bleakness.
It is one of the bleakest albums ever.
I mean, that's kind of a theme. There's like quite a lot of bleak albums that really sort of resonate with me and have stuck with me clearly. And I mean, because like White Pony's kind of bleak.
Oh, it is, yeah.
It was the first time I'd ever heard just that kind of a sound. Yes, they kind of had that on the first two albums, but not to this kind of like consistent level. It was one of those things, they just nailed something perfect on Carpe Diem, and they've subsequently not been able to find it since either. I
agree, although I would argue that I think the new album is spectacular, but it's for different reasons.
Okay, well, I haven't properly listened to the new album actually.
You will really dig the new album. It is very good.
Cool. But yeah, Carpe Diem's amazing. Yep, what are you next?
Right, my last two. So my next one is Dredge, who are, one of my absolute favourite bands. And I've gone with Catch Without Arms, which, personally, if somebody said, which is the best one, I'd have maybe gone El Cielo, but this is the one that has the fondest memories.
I'm surprised you didn't go with El Cielo.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I could flip between them. I mean, I can't really decide between them, but this one has...
Catch Without Arms is the most polished, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this has, like, the catchier, bigger tunes. El Cielo is a more artistic, sprawling album. And the thing is with this album is, when I did El Cielo, it was pretty much just me. Whereas this was the album that all my friends then were like, holy shit, this band's incredible. And we all bonded, everyone enjoyed this album together, so to speak. And like me and Steve travelled over to Amsterdam to go and see him. And, it was just a really cool little time. We just got married and stuff. It was a really fun little period. So, yeah, Catch Without Arms by Dredge, which was 2005.
Cool. 2005. God. Wow. I still remember it coming out.
And I have the tattoo on the back of my neck.
That was the thing. It was like it was around the time we first met you.
Yeah, it would have been.
And you were banging on about it. It was just like, oh no, this one's coming out. You got to check it out. Oh, they'll be playing download in 2006. You got to go see. So yeah, again, just fond memories. Same year, 2005. For my next one, Alexis on Fire. Watch out. That was just a real sort of like shot in the arm at the time. I remember sort of feeling like there hadn't been another album that had grabbed me in the city. Like I was still kind of riding on the the Thrice Artist in the Ambulance from 2003. I remember getting out of uni, and I'd moved to Lincoln, and like just sort of like needing an injection of something amazing, like something fresh that I hadn't heard. And I had the first Alexis album, which is a lot more raw.
Yeah, it is a lot.
But this one really just sort of like, it was, the actual sort of like pushing of all three vocalists on the album, and actually sort of defining their sound on Watch Out. And again, it came as a good shot in the arm, because it was like the first single was a double split with The Bled.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah.
On their first album. So those two albums came out at the same time, and that album again, The Bled, would be on my list if I could get it on, because that first album is incredible. And it was around the time, it was before Scuzz TV was Scuzz TV. It was like a sort of like punk channel, and it was just I was just stunned that there was a channel that was playing all this amazing music. They were playing like Deadbolt from Thrice, and they were, like that summer, Alexis and The Bled started getting played on it, and I was just stunned that there was a channel playing such awesome new music, because it was a world away from the Kerrang TV that still at the time is kind of playing the same stuff that it plays now. But it was only a couple of years old then.
Whereas presumably it was, even if they hadn't come out yet, it was probably playing Queens of the Stone Age, No One Knows, Chop Suey by System of a Down, and November Rain. Just those three videos on rotation.
Yeah, and Limp Bizkit.
Oh yeah, of course, Rolling.
Bowling for Soup, all that. Middle of the road stuff. So I remember finding that punk channel. I can't remember what it was called.
No, but I can't remember that.
Again, it was just that sort of shot in the arm that summer where I'd first moved, and that album has never let me down. Like every song on it is incredible, and they obviously then gone on to write another one of my personal favorites, Crisis, but Watch Out's still the one.
Was that your last one?
No.
All right, okay. My last one then is Neurosis. Again, like Dredge and Godspeed, one of my absolute favourite bands. Times of Grace I've gone for, which came out in 1999. One of the most brutally heavy and weird albums that treads the line between their absolute pit of despair, doom, with the slightly folky edge. Like, you could go to the album before, Through Silver and Blood, for just the all-out brutality and the tribal drumming and the samples and the heaviness. And this was the one which saw them kind of tread into this, the channeling the earth kind of like, the slightly folky stuff. Really weird, full of incredibly just heavy, brooding songs. I remember persuading my dad to drive me down quite a long way to, I think it was it somewhere near Birmingham, a very big old venue that's quite famous, that the names escape me now. I'm sure it'll come back as soon as we stop recording, but he drove down, bless him, again with Steve, and we went to see Neurosis on the Times of Grace tour, and Voivod was supporting, and I just had the best night ever. And my poor dad, he hated them. Absolutely hated them. And this band have just, obviously, I talk about them all the time on the show. They've stayed with me the whole time, still producing incredible music. So this kind of had to go in there. So yeah, Times of Grace by Neurosis.
Rad. My last one, I think, is also kind of predictable. Certainly for you, if I hadn't mentioned it up until now, Refused, Shape of Punk to Come. Again, I think I've spoken about this on the show before, where it was just like I had my local music store that I used to always go to.
Yeah.
He used to put the new music out on Friday night ahead of releases on Monday, back when albums came out on Mondays, whereas now they come out on the Fridays. Again, because things tend to leak over the weekend. Whereas back then, obviously, before any of that, he used to put them out on Friday evenings, and he used to stay up late, keep the shop open till sort of 8 or 9 at night. I can't remember what. Because then he keep the shop open, because then you could go to the pub after on a Friday night, which obviously the pub was kind of next door, so it was easier to stay open past 6 and stay open, put the new albums out and let people sort of buy them and then go to the pub.
That's really cool.
So I used to go down and pick up some new albums ahead of the releases on Monday, and then go back and sort of pick up some booze from an off license, and then go back to my mate's house. We used to just listen to the new purchases. But I remember going into the shop and just Liberation Frequency literally just started as I came into the shop, and it was playing over the stereo, and just being blown away. I had to go up and just what is this? I've never heard anything like this. He got the album in for us, and it's, from 1998, still sounds ahead of its time. The amount of people and bands that have been influenced by it, just even by their look. If you look at the New Noise video, just
the video, yeah. I mean, it isn't of its time at all.
Yeah, they kind of have a look, kind of like early Funeral for a Friend, or sort of that sort of like screamo birth, sort of around 2005 to 2008. All had that look, which Refused were doing in 98. At least I think it was 98, or was it 96? I might have put down the wrong date here.
I couldn't tell you. If I'd to get, I'd have thought that would have been later, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 98, because it was the year, it was before they split up. Yeah, it was 98. Yeah, I thought it was. I just wanted to double check myself. But again, just sort of never heard anything like it, where it was punk, but it was insanely aggressive and metal, but it also had all these really crazy samples, and there was just some really interesting. It was just, I'd never heard music that diverse in one album before. You've got tracks that are kind of classical towards the end, and then just an interesting mix of sounds and things going on in it. And I was 16, 17 at the time. It was just, I'd never heard anything quite like it, and it's still an iconic album to me.
We are going to try and sort out a Spotify, so if you want to hear that nice collection of songs, do a search for Macho Grande, and hopefully it'll appear as soon as we've done it. So just very, very quickly, the ones that if it was strictly just personal, I would have liked to have had Sepultura's Chaos AD, because they were my personal favourite band as a teenager. But I don't listen to it now. That's the thing. It's not still a go-to for me. If it comes on, I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it isn't something that I would clamour to put on. And same with And Justice for All by Metallica. I kind of wanted a Metallica or an Iron Maiden album, and much as I love them and I'll always have a soft spot, I wouldn't put it on now. So they didn't make it in. Same Astro Creep by White Zombie. The Slipknot debut album.
Oh, yeah.
And then my list of, why isn't this in there? I've also got Converge and Architects and Dillinger, Cult of Luna, so there's some real biggies that just couldn't make the list.
Well, this is the thing of there's still amazing albums that I would, it's just these are the ones that kind of it was the Desert Island thing.
Yeah, that's personal tinge to it. Yeah.
With me, they would do me right. I'd be happy with those 10 for the rest of my days.
That would have been easier. Why don't we just do that? Why don't we just
I thought it was.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
I just needlessly making it complicated.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm pretty sure there was a message where it was just these are the 10 you choose to take me to Desert Island.
Yeah, but then I think I added a shitload of parameters, and it just.
Yeah. But it's only metal, it's only rock, and it can't. Yeah. So anyway, we got there.
Cool, sweet, that was fun. Right, let's kind of wrap up then. If you like the show, please leave us a review on iTunes, because that means a lot. You can email us, info@machograndepodcast.co.uk. Not sure what the plan for the next one is, but there'll definitely be new music and a mystery box. Was there? Oh yeah, we've got a competition.
Oh yes, we do, yeah.
We talked about it on a recent show, and we talked about the new album from Attan, which is called End Of. We have got a copy of that album to give away. So if you just want to put Attan in the email title and put your name and address, and we'll pick a winner info@machograndepodcast.co.uk.
Yep, cool.
Nice and simple. Anything else you want to add or chat about?
No, I think that we've covered a lot there.
We have.
You
can go back to sleep.
Yep. Yeah, I'm ready for bed again.
We'll do film chat on the next show as well. We'll have a catch up on those on the next one. All right, so we're going to close out this show on a band called Celestial Wolves. Their new album, Call of the Void, is out now via Dunk Records and I think it's 1,000 Arms in the US and then Dunk Records in Europe. They're from Belgium. Rock band. It says rock band who fuse different musical backgrounds to mold instrumental juggernauts. You can go to celestialwolves.bandcamp.com. This, if you've got any kind of passing interest in post rock, this is stunning. Really, really good. Did you get through this or not?
No, I haven't.
You will like this. It's.
Did you send it to me?
I think so.
You sure?
Oh, actually, you should have the Horlicks promo of this. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yes, no, you did. Of course.
I don't know their earlier stuff, so there's like previous albums and EPs and stuff that you can get hold of. But this album is really, really good. Just a really good slice of post rock. A couple of real standout tracks, but I'm going to go for my personal favourite, which is called Stuart and the Marry Man. And
awesome.
there we go. We'll see you very soon for episode 201.
Brilliant. Speak to you later, guys.
Macho Grande?
No, I don't think I'll ever get over Macho Grande.